I welcome you back to our journey through the Gospel of Matthew. We will be reading from Matthew chapter 13 and verses 31 and 32, and I'm going to be reading from the Williams translation. Beginning at verse 31 of Matthew chapter 13, he told them this story as follows. The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a mustard seed which a man took and sowed in his fields. It is the smallest of all seeds, but when it is grown, it is the largest of plants. Yea, it grows into a tree so that the wild birds come and roost in its branches. This is a very short parable. And one of the questions I have when I read a parable like this is, what was the original setting of this? I wonder if some of the parables of Jesus were spoken, well, with a measure of spontaneity, that he was out there teaching, preaching, maybe even doing some healings, some deliverances, and life unfolded around him. And as life unfolded, he picked up on what was going on and used it as a means to transition to a point of teaching about the nature of the kingdom. Realize that parables are focused on what is the kingdom of God. They are, in that sense, asking and answering the question of what is the kingdom of God, or as we have said in Matthew, due to Jewish sensibilities, would say kingdom of heaven. So as Jesus was preaching one day and he was talking, and he maybe very casually said to the crowds, hey, look at that tree over there. What do you think of that mustard tree? And then maybe that leads to talking about the seed of that tree. Jesus saying in a teasing sort of way, is that some big tree? It must have had some humongous seed. Did Jesus, as it were, use a little bit of banter with the people around him, the crowds, to kind of draw them in as he began to discuss what the mustard seed was? We need to make a disclaimer about this parable. Jesus was talking in a particular part of the world that had a unique set of flora. Some people have wanted to say that Jesus made a mistake about a mustard seed being the smallest of all seeds. When people do stuff like this, you just pull your hair out because they're being literalists to the point of being absurd. It is obviously the mustard seed is not. I'll take other people's word on that. I haven't done the investigation. Jesus, of course, was not making a scientific observation. What was Jesus doing? He was basically using a proverb that was current in his day and age. Understand that not all of what Jesus taught was completely original. Jesus could not. You cannot speak in any day and age and be completely original. You have to work off of, to a degree, what people know, understand, and believe. And in that part of the world with its unique set of flora, the mustard seed was seen as the smallest of all seeds. I reckon that Jesus was not the first by far to make that observation. I do wonder if Jesus, in some of his teaching, like the mustard seed, was building off of previous observations and usages. A key word in missiological studies is contextualization. I will explain the term in a moment, but for the moment, understand that this is what Jesus mastered. Would Jesus have used this parable if he had been preaching in the northern part of the great state of California? I have never seen a redwood tree, and I'm not sure if I've ever seen a mustard tree for that matter. And the mustard tree, from what I understand, is the smaller of the two. Missiology is the study of missions and its practice. What the what you have to do when you go to another culture from your culture or your host culture is you have to make the faith relevant to the world that you are now in. You can address issues in a foreign country which are relevant to where you are from, but are of a non-issue. And so part of the goal of a missionary and the work of the church is to not just take the message as preached in, say, Portland, Oregon, and make it, you know, and preach it in the jungles of Peru and change. You have to begin to speak in the world of those people. That's what contextualization is about. And if the gospel and the church are to flourish, they must come to fit into the new culture. Jesus understood well how to make the teaching and truths fit into the time and place he was in. If we want to impact our world, we must speak in the language of our culture. The kingdom of God is not the church, if we mean by that the institutional structure. No, the kingdom of God is not that. The kingdom of God through the church goes out into all the world. It started as this teeny, itty bitty little seed, and soon it has the capacity to have birds to come into the tree and roost in there, as the Williams translation says. The church has taken the kingdom of God to the world, and now in that great tree, people from every tribe, tongue, and nation can find refuge in it. The kingdom cannot and will not be stopped.